This is The Guardian.
Hello, I'm Faye Carruthers and welcome to The Guardian Women's Football Weekly. There's a new name on the top of the Barclays WSL table as Chelsea get the better of Manchester City. Late goals galore as Kirby capped off a Brighton victory and super sub Salmon gives Villa their first win of the season. And North London is red, Merseyside is blue. Matt Beard didn't think it was a penalty. How about you? All that plus we'll take your questions, and that's today's Guardian Women's Football Weekly. Suzy Wrack, what a weekend of football we were treated to. Are you all right? Did you like my rhyme?
I'm still laughing at you being the worst Valentine's rhymer ever. But yeah, great weekend of football.
That's just cruel. Right, you're not getting a Valentine's card from me in February, that's for sure. Jenna, Schillaci, it's so good to have you back. I'm a bit harsh maybe from us after a North London battering.
It's good to be back, and I think I'm finally recovering, getting over the weekend, yes.
Oh, bless you. Sophie, Downey, you've been off on your travels again. New hat today as well.
I have, yes. It's fully winter, but yes, I've been here, there and everywhere travelling around. It's that time of year, isn't it?
It is indeed, and I'm very jealous of your hat. I'm going to be putting one on after this. It's freezing outside. I'm loving all the messages when it gets to this time of year and people have never seen snow in their lives ever before. It feels like, anyway. White Christmas out there, except it's not Christmas. Shut up, Faye. Right, there's a new name, in fact, at the summit of the Barclays WSL. Top of the table clash at Stamford Bridge, two unbeaten sides, and it promised to be a blockbuster in the prime Saturday night slot, but it was Chelsea who continued their 100% win rate, beating Manchester City by 2-0. 2 goals in 4 second-half minutes, in fact, from Myra Ramirez and Guru Wrighton. City had been a point ahead of Chelsea at the start of the day, but the Blues have a game in hand and now leapfrog their title rivals. It was another record as well for Sonia Bonpastor. She became the first WSL manager to win their first 7 league games in charge. What did you make of the match, first of all, Suzy? Did it live up to your expectations?
Yes and no, in that, when you, like, a game like that is so hyped up, right? You sort of, and we're quite used to a lot of goals in there. We've seen a lot of sort of kind of high scoring draws between these two teams. But at the same time, I thought it was a real tactical battle, like a real chess match of a game. And that was actually quite enjoyable to watch at times. And yeah, like, I suppose, to steal the cliche of the managers, like, games like that are going to be won or lost on the fine margins, right? And I think Lauren Hemp was such a massive miss for City in that game that probably for me was the difference. They couldn't quite get the service to Bunny Shaw that I think they would have liked, and I think that maybe proved costly.
Yeah, I mean, Bunny Shaw didn't have her best game, and exactly that reason. If you've got the player who is the leading assist maker in the WSL missing, you can understand why Myra Ramirez came up on top and Bunny Shaw was uncharacteristically quiet, perhaps. It was a massive blow, Jenna, wasn't it, to lose her just before the game?
Absolutely. I think, she's been instrumental, and was obviously watching the Man City Tottenham game the weekend before for my sins, and she was, yes, all the talk was about Bunny Shaw and another hat trick, but I thought Lauren Hemp was absolutely fantastic, and yeah, you talk about a key player. To not have her start, I think that would have affected Man City just because of how instrumental she has been. And I think you touched on it there. I thought Bunny Shaw, she did have some opportunities, but she was just off the pace. And I think that was the difference. I think you saw in Ramirez, who was absolutely in top form, unbelievable, unplayable at times in that game. You need every player to step up and be at a level 10. And I think that was the difference on the day. And yeah, there's no doubt that losing Lauren Hemp just before such a huge game is a massive blow for City.
Yeah, knee injury for Lauren. Hopefully won't keep her out too long. We were waxing lyrical about her last week, weren't we? We've also waxed lyrical about Myra Ramirez, Sophie, continuing to impress, leading the line for Chelsea. I can see the smile on your face the minute I mentioned her name. Her 3rd goal of the season. And it just feels as if she's almost impossible to defend against.
Yeah, I do think it almost strikes fear into defenders already before they've even started moving on the pitch. When they see Mary Ramirez on the team sheet, she is just. I just watched her with so much joy because she has everything to her game, and I'm just really she's only been in this league 10 months or something, and to be that adjusted to it. She had a period at the end of last season out injured as well, and she just looks like she could just beat any defence. It's not just her pace and her her strength, which she showed with Alana Kennedy on Saturday when she completely just kind of shrugged her off for the goal, but it's kind of all of that the intelligence to cut inside on that run to beat Alex Greenwood. She knew where Alex Greenwood was already going to go, and so she cut inside to send that shot away. I would also add a shout out for Maika Hermano as well, because I thought that was her best game in a Chelsea shirt. I thought she's so young still, but she's known for her kind of skill in possession and her talent on the ball and her striking ability and her goals. But actually, the way that she managed the game off the ball was really, really impressive for a young player. The way that she completely marshalled Yui Hasegawa out of the game, gave her literally no space. Yui Hasegawa, we know, is one of the best in the world in that position at the moment, and Hermano just completely marshalled her out of the game. So those two, I think, were key, absolutely key for Chelsea, and to score that goal in the transition as well was really a sign of what they were trying to do in that match.
My record is strong, right? I interviewed Ramirez, big interview ahead of this game, and she gets the critical goal. I did it for Russo against Chelsea last season, Nikita Paris before she scored against United a couple of weeks back, Frida Marnham at the start of the season when she went on that scoring run. Basically, I'm a good luck charm, and all press officers need to take note.
All fans need to take note as well. I think we should all message in and tell Suzy which player she needs to go and interview next. Where can she sprinkle her stardust next? It's a good point, Suzy. As was your point earlier on about the tactical aspect of the game, and it felt as if Chelsea had to be really patient, which is maybe a sign of the growing maturity in this team this season. Sophie just talked there about how good they were off the ball.
Yeah, well, they had to be good off the ball, right? Because they sort of what I think was really clever is, there's going to be very, very few games this season where Chelsea don't dominate possession, right? Where they aren't kind of dictating the ebb and flow of the game. And here they played into Man City's hands. They let them have the ball. They knew what they wanted to do tactically in this game and were really strategic about it. And they did it in a way that, yes, sort of kind of played to the opposition's strengths to a certain extent, but played to their own strengths and played to the strengths of the individuals that they've got in their team as well. So I thought it was just really, really clever how efficient they were with the ball when they had it, and despite having so little possession wise, they were that was really unnoticeable, I felt, because they were so efficient with it and so effective. The press was so good. I think what Sophie said about Maika Hermano was spot on. There's a little video doing the rounds of Sam Kerr and Kadisha Buchanan running up to her after the game and screaming player of the match at her, which was really cute. But yeah, I enjoyed them doing something a little bit different in order to win this game. They really adapted tactically to the opposition while still playing to their own strengths, and I thought that was the sign of a team that is really evolving tactically.
Yeah, Man City did dominate possession, Jenna, but Gareth Taylor labelled it a game of errors. They didn't do very much with it. It can't just be because of Lauren Hemp. Where else did it go wrong?
Yeah, I think there was quite a few uncharacteristics in Man City, in that there was a lot of careless passes. I thought there was a lot of turnovers from Man City, and I thought after Ramirez got the first goal, there was a moment of obviously the goals come in quick successions, and I don't think they were able to reset after the first goal, and that's where a string of mistakes come in, and then any good team is going to capitalise and be ruthless, and I think that's what Chelsea showed there. They pounced on the nervousness, I think, after that first goal. And I think that's probably the difference, that mentality to go on and then kill that game off. It was a fantastic second goal by Guro Roten, really classy, I thought, the way she passed it in. But yeah, I thought Man City, I thought playing out from the back. Obviously, I thought Greenwood was a standout defender, and I thought Kennedy really, really struggled. And again, I think that was down to just how difficult Myra Ramirez is to play against, and I think once she sniffs a bit of blood, she doesn't let go. And you saw that time and time again when she identified Kennedy as the weaker of the two centre-backs and really gave her a tough afternoon.
Yeah, she did. Two contrasting bits of news that came out after the game, actually. Sonia Bonpastor announced that Canadian defender Kadisha Buchanan has been the latest player to suffer an ACL injury, so she's out for the rest of the season. We obviously wish her the very best in her recovery. Some nicer news to bring you. Huge congratulations to Sam Kerr and Christy Mewis. They've announced that they're expecting their first child in 2025, prompting this Instagram interaction from Chelsea's official account. Should we get the half and half scarf ready, or will you, West Ham women? West Ham responded, handshake on it. Love that. Excellent. Right, earlier in the day, this is the bit that Jenna is dreading. Don't worry, I'm going to go to Sophie first on it. You can have a think about what you're going to say about your team.
Thanks. I've not spoke about it enough yet.
Oh, no, I bet you haven't. 28,000, though, packed into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the first North London derby of the season. But unfortunately for the hosts, Jenna's side Tottenham, it was an encounter without the drama of last season and finished quite straightforwardly. Spurs 0, Arsenal 3. Alessia Russo opening the scoring. 63 seconds it took her. Frida Marnham claimed her 7th goal of the season, and then Stina Blackstenius rounded off the rout just minutes after coming on as a second half substitute. So 3 wins, 12 goals and 3 clean sheets. It's been a real confidence boosting week for Arsenal, and they sit just 1 point behind Brighton in 4th place. What did you make of their performance, Sophie?
Yes, no, I think it's been such a good week for Arsenal, and look at their creative players. Frida Mornham, Alessia Russo, Beth Mead when she's playing. I know she didn't start in this game, but she came on. They all just look so creative, and I think that's been the difference in the last few weeks. I think they were under quite a rigid structure or rigid tactics under Jonas Eidevall, and I think just giving them a bit of authority on the pitch to decide what to want to do. The tactics haven't changed that much between the two coaches, I don't think. But I think that Renee has come in and just allowed them to kind of be themselves on the pitch and kind of be a bit intuitive with it, which I think was being lost in that first bit of the season. And it's just showing that they're having quite a lot of fun out there, scoring the goals. Their press is amazing in terms of the pressing from the front. Alessia Russo is back to doing what, we've seen her do for England in the past year. And I think she's back to scoring goals. That was her, I think, 5th goal or something in all competitions. So it just shows that when players feel a bit more able to be themselves on the pitch, they can really lighten up and it can get the rewards. And things change so quickly in football. They're now, as you say, a point behind Brighton in 4th. You think about what happened a month ago, and it was that terrible week where you had the Everton draw, the Munich loss, and then the Chelsea loss. And in that space of that month, and the narratives are just completely turned around. So, it's a pretty exciting time for Arsenal. They've got so much confidence.
Yeah, Jonas Eidevall stepping away. It seems to have given the players and the club an injection of enthusiasm again and changing things, as you say. And Suzy, we've talked a lot about Renee Slagers in recent weeks. Don't want to repeat ourselves, but Tom wrote a really interesting piece at the weekend about whether or not she should actually be in line for the permanent role. What do you think? There's one more game to go before the latest international break. Is this the time where they confirm her, or are they looking elsewhere?
I think it's too soon to say whether she's done enough to be permanent manager. I'm slightly biased, but the job at Arsenal, given the context of not just the sort of history of the club and things like that, but what is going on off the pitch in terms of, how successful they're being at sort of getting people into the Emirates and things, and building that connection with the fan base and the away travelling support and all of those kind of things. It is one of, if not the biggest job in women's club football, maybe alongside the Barcelonas and Chelseas. And she is while she's managed in Sweden, she's a relatively inexperienced manager at the top level of the game. And we're looking at not a huge number of games of her being in charge. It's not her team. It's very much Jonas's team still. They're riding on the back of a, kind of new manager bounce, when players sort of thrive a little bit on just change in and of itself. So, like, I'm not saying she shouldn't get it. Like, she clearly is doing a great job and comes across fantastically well in press conferences and things like that. But the run of fixtures they've had, for me, and the number of fixtures they had isn't enough to say this person should have this job. Like, give her to the end of the season maybe and then sort of consider it then or whatever. But I don't know, like, I feel like if they gave it to her now and then Arsenal go on to lose that game against Bayern Munich, potentially don't get out of the Champions League group stage, or, they've got the big game against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge at the end of January. If they lost that significantly, then that completely spins the narrative of her tenure as manager to so far. And I just think there's a few key games coming up that would really be a significant test of her ability as a manager that they should maybe wait for. I think it's too big a job to just kind of give it to her straight away at the moment as it stands. But I'm not saying that they shouldn't necessarily at some point.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're slightly sitting on the fence, slightly got some splinters, but I understand why. Jenna, let's talk about Tottenham. Look, it's not been the start to the season that Robert Villahamn would have wanted after all the positives of last year. I don't think any of us predicted it either. Fifth defeat in 6 games, second week in a row that you've been behind within 2 minutes. What is happening? Is there too much experimentation going on? We had Chris Slegg on last week, who's obviously a big Tottenham fan, and he spoke about obviously the club philosophy across the board, men's and women's, that you're playing this kind of risky, exciting brand of football, but at the minute it's not quite paying off, is it?
No, and I think it's in the club's DNA that they want to play out from the back, and that is a really, really risky way to play. And I think when you pull it off, it looks absolutely magical and the fans love it. When you don't, and when you've got a team that aren't confident and you're playing against the likes of Arsenal, Man City, who are well known for being excellent in the press and out of possession, it's a really tough ask, and you've got to have a plan B in those moments. I think against Man City last week, throughout the game, the formation was changed, which started with the 3 at the back and then Molly playing as a shield, I guess, in front of the defensive pair, which to experiment something like that for the first time against a team like Man City, who are absolutely flying, was risky. But I guess then to concede so early on, to come back from that, it's impossible against the best of teams in the WSL, let alone a Man City. So I think when you're looking at the Arsenal game, you've had a week to reflect. That Man City result would have killed them, the manner in which they've done it. There was a lot of talk around it, and you're kind of thinking, just get through, just stay in the game against Arsenal, because Arsenal have found their form at the wrong time, coming up against the Tottenham team at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, all eyes on them, and, it was the worst possible start again. And I don't think you can underestimate mentally what that does to a player so early on in the game for a second week, And I was looking at the sideline, and I think even Robert was like just struck by it, like just froze what to do in that moment. And then from that minute on, it was just relentless pressure from Arsenal, and the game plan's out the window. You've got players who aren't feeling confident anyway. Change your formation again, 5 at the back. And Tottenham just couldn't handle Arsenal. And I think what was evident in the first half especially was the back 5. Frida Maanum was just picking up pockets of space. I was almost just doing a cam, just watching her, just no one marking her. And I think it was evident that there was no real leadership in that back 5. Nobody wanted to jump in and pick Maanum up. There was no communication, and time after time, the ball was getting played into her. And, she scored that second goal in the end with a run into the box, and nobody followed her run. But I think it's tough. I think there was a moment in the first half where the Beth England strike, and it was a fantastic save. And you saw Beth England like punch in the air, trying to rile her team up, because that's what they needed. It was that kind of energy. That started to feel like a North London derby. The players were fighting for it. But, they've given themselves such a tough mountain to climb after conceding so early again. And it was a really tough watch and tough afternoon for them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Robert Villaham needs to maybe get back to his principles a bit more. I don't think we saw this much change last year when things weren't going well. I think he had a very set system last year, and maybe there were some alterations in kind of personnel and making themselves maybe more defensively strong. But I'm not sure he tried so many things. Poor Suzy was on the end of my frustrations at the weekend with my texting her in capital letters, because it's just like, it's even such an example of like the way that he uses Bethany England, right? And for me, she's the most potent striker, number 9, you can have when she's in form, and you just need to stick her in the box. And instead, she was on corner taking duty. And for me, that was just not making sense to me. I was like, you literally have one of the best, finishers out there, and she's there taking the corner. I think there's just maybe a little bit too much going on, and he maybe needs to get back to the basics of what he wants to try and do as a football team.
I was just really struggling with how much space Leah Williamson was getting, like well into the Spurs half, to just dictate play and, find those passes. Like I found it staggering, just time and time again, attack after attack after attack. They were just building from within the Spurs half with zero pressure on them. Not a single forward was putting pressure on that Arsenal back line to turn over the ball or make them feel like they need to sit just that little bit deeper, perhaps. It was way too easy from the off. That's what really staggered me, and I found really disappointing based on how well they did last season, how well organised they looked last season. I don't understand how that has evaporated so quickly.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has got to do with the confidence within the team right now. I think obviously they had a really tough run of games. They've played all top 4 teams consecutively with the West Ham in between it. But I think just touching on that, I don't know, I was looking at Beth England as well, and she was urging the team to get up, but they were just getting pinned back and back and back. And there was no Becky Spencer at times when she'd come to claim the ball. She's looking to play out and her defenders are behind her. It's almost like the players kind of were hiding a bit in that first half, especially. I thought the basics just weren't right. There was a moment where Eva Summonen had the ball just outside her own box. The simple pass was to play it back, and she tried to nutmeg Marnham, didn't pull it off. And then it was just, I had my head in my hands at that time. I was like, so even like the basic things they aren't doing. And I think it is going back, stripping it right back to basics now. And once you get those basics right, they are a very good team and they are hard to beat. But in a minute, they're just going through this moment where nothing's falling for them. There's no confidence. They're not looking like the team that we saw last season. And I think off the back of last season, I thought, where they did pick up points off of the top teams, it's almost kind of like the gaps got bigger this season for them. And I don't know whether that's down to the quality of the team or the moment that they're in where they can't express themselves and not got that confidence. A bit like how Arsenal were, I guess, when they weren't picking up the results. Like confidence and that mentality really, really affects players, and it's going to be tough, and they've got to fight through it and come out the other side of it, and quickly.
Yeah, they do. And I think sometimes they need a little bit of luck as well, which is exactly what Everton got at the weekend. Their first win of the season, and under controversial circumstances at Goodison Park. The Merseyside derby ended Everton 1, Liverpool 0, thanks to a penalty from Katja Snoyers. Credit to the Netherlands striker for scoring it, first and foremost, but should it have been awarded in the first place? In case you've not seen it, this is what happened. Onaka Hayashi was brought down by Fuka Nagano, and you don't even need to watch it more than once to see that the foul was clearly committed outside of the box, but the referee pointed to the spot. Matt Beard, understandably furious post-match. This is what he had to say. I don't know whether they, meaning the officials, don't like me personally. I don't know. And whether that has an effect on my team, it could do. I've been booked for things this year when I've seen other managers do a lot worse and get away with it. You have the referee, the fourth official, the linesman and the assistant referee, all with unblocked views. Even I saw the contact was about a yard outside the box. I just give up with it, to be honest, because it happens every week, not just with us, and it's cost us the game today 100%. What did you make of his comments, Suzy? Did he go too far? I mean, he's effectively calling the officials' integrity into account there.
I was just sat here giggling to myself because I was thinking it'd be really funny if I just went, well, it was Stonewall penalty, wasn't it? Just like purely to see Sophie's face in reaction, given that she's been shaking her head in disgust at the decision the whole way through you reading that out. But yeah, no, I mean, it was poor decision, wasn't it? But his comments, yes, too far in calling the integrity of the referees into account. I think the idea that, referees will make a decision based on them just not liking him is a bit far-fetched. I think it feeds into a narrative around referees at the moment that isn't necessarily a healthy one, in the men's and women's game. And, they make mistakes, right? Like, it's a big mistake. One of them should catch that. It's really poor and they're going to have to review it. And they're probably going to be beating themselves up about that mistake for quite some time, because having been to one of their, training weekends, they spend a lot of time agonising over the errors that they make. And it's a really costly one. I think in his post-match interview when he said it's cost us the 3 points was a little bit rich, given that they failed to score again. But yeah, it's a really, really bad decision. I think it's not okay to feed into a narrative that referees have some kind of agenda against managers at the moment.
I was just going to add that I think when he reflects on it, he'll realise that wasn't what you should say. I just think back to the penalty that got given to them against Tottenham a few weeks back. That was never a penalty. So I think the narrative that the referees are against them, referees make mistakes, as Suzy says, but I think that narrative is proven to be a little bit wrong. So, or more than a little bit wrong. So I think maybe when he reflects on it, he'll probably get in trouble for those comments, I'm sure. But I think when he's had a few days away from the kind of the drama of the game, he might look back on that and think maybe I went a little bit too far.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous actually to be doing that, particularly at the moment. It's he needs to, he has a powerful position, and he perhaps needs to think about that a little bit more and the damage that could potentially do, because I'm sure the referee will be absolutely beating herself up about it. But that kind of scrutiny is not good for anybody. Liverpool did catch the eye last year, Jenna, but a little bit like Spurs actually. They've had a real mixed campaign so far. They dominated the stats in this one, but as Sophie said, didn't score and didn't really have any cutting edge at all. What's going wrong for them?
Yeah, no, they created chances. I think they had 17 chances on goal and then 6 on target, which, isn't good enough. But I thought you've got to give a shout out to Courtney Brosnan, because I thought she was absolutely fantastic. And the save that stood out was that double save against Fugano, pure reaction saves. But, the strikers usually get the shouts out. So I thought it's right we give her because they're like game saving. It's turned out to be a game saving save, isn't it?
We love the goalkeepers on this pod.
We love the goalkeepers. So yeah, I thought defensively, they had to dig it out, that result, because the chances were flying in and they defended with their heart. And I think, just touching on Matt Beard, I think in reflection, if you look at it, they had a lot of chances to turn that around, and the penalty wasn't like it was in the last 20 minutes or anything. It was quite early on in the game, and they had time to, convert those chances. They didn't. So I don't think they did enough. So to call out the ref, I think it's just pure frustration. But you've got for me, I think that point and those 3 points for Everton is huge. They needed that. And, I think the state that the women's game is in at the minute, without VAR, you're always going to have, some throughout the course of the season, some of those are going to go for you and some of them aren't. So, every team's in the same position in that sense. So, yeah, I think Everton hung on and I think deserve the 3 points.
But what is it about Everton and Merseyside derbies, Soph? They've won 5 of the last 8 against Liverpool, which, big relief really for Brian Sorensen. They move up to 9th now.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a funny stat, to be honest, given, the kind of travails that Everton have had over the last 2 years in terms of both injury crisis, the financial problems that the club have as well, the change of ownership. So I think it's quite funny that they have that such a strong stat in Merseyside derby. Brian Sorensen, I think, after the game said the city is blue and we can hold on to that until the next time we meet them. It's always going to be blue until that point. So he's understandably delighted. I thought, it was a long time coming for them. They have put in performances at times, and this is what makes me, I know we've been talking a lot in recent weeks about, how worried we are about Everton, but then there's something where they pick up points against Liverpool, they pick up points against Arsenal, and I just think maybe they've just got enough about them to be okay. It's not like it's not going to be a slog till the finish line. I think it will be. I think they'll be right in that mix of the relegation battle. But there's just parts of me that see they have the world-class keeper in Courtney Brosnan. She is world-class. I've seen what she's done for Ireland as well. And they do have players with huge experience on that pitch. I know they're very light, but I do just think that, you know, they might just have enough to keep themselves up.
Yes, we shall see come the end of the season whether they have enough to stay up. That's it for part one. In part two, we look at the rest of the weekend's action and we'll catch up on the latest in the Championship. Welcome back to part two of the Guardian Women's Football Weekly. 2 5-goal thrillers to go through, starting at the Amex, where Brighton got back to winning ways with a 3-2 victory over struggling West Ham. Rachel McLaughlin and Kiko Seiki fired the Seagulls into a 2-goal lead, but they were pegged back by a quick-fire double from Katrina Gorry. It was an 82nd minute winner, though, from Fran Kirby that sealed the points for the hosts. Brighton perhaps made a little bit tougher work of it than they should have done. Susie, what did you make of them?
Yeah, I mean, you could say that, but I just thought Katrina Gorry is such a phenomenal player with like those kind of goals in her locker, you know, able to pull something out of nowhere. You know, I feel mean saying that I would like to see a bigger club come in for her, because West Ham have been very good to her. They are, you know, obviously kind of a really good club with parents and pregnancy. Like, they've got a really good track record there. But like a player of her quality, I would love to see fit into a bigger team and see how that goes. So I was sort of like, you know, I'm in like making my little funny I'm in an R in noises, because like I feel mean saying that, because West Ham like have been good to her and her family and have earned the right to have her as well. And, you know, not every brilliant player should be at one of the best teams, but I just really enjoy watching her play and would like to see how she does with players around her that are able to get the best out of her on a more regular basis, I suppose. But yeah, like, I mean, in terms of Brighton, you know, obviously they'll probably be very frustrated by the goals conceded, but when you're playing against a player like that, like, I imagine they'll be glad to have just, you know, kind of got the win and scored more.
Yeah, definitely. Fran Kirby, with an assist and a goal, became just the 4th player to reach over 100 goal involvements in the WSL. She's becoming really important, isn't she, now, to this Brighton side, Soph?
She is, and all she needed was a run of games where she stayed fit, I think. And I think that was the problem at Chelsea last season, is that she got herself injured, picked up knocks, and then could never really get herself back into a run of games in that Chelsea side because of the amount of, you know, quality around her, the form that was going on in terms of that run to the title. She just could never get going. Whereas I think now she's found a home at Brighton where she's playing regularly, playing week in, week out. And you're just seeing Fran Kirby come back to life again. I mean, I've always said I think she's one of our generational talents. She's one of the best players that we've had in an England shirt for a long time. It's just been those injuries that have really not been able to show her in her best light at times, because she's just not been able to get that run of form. So yeah, she's becoming absolutely key to this Brighton side. Brighton aren't built on defence at the moment. They are built on goals. You can see it in their forward lineup and their attacking threats. And as long as they outscore the opposition, they'll be absolutely fine. Maybe at some point, I think Daria needs to think about that defending a little bit more and make it a priority, because they're going to probably beat those in and around them in the league, but they won't, as we saw with Arsenal a couple of weeks ago. When they come up against them, they'll get beaten quite heavily. So they need to think about that maybe a bit. But at the moment for them, as long as they're outscoring the opposition, it's fine.
Yeah, and they're quite fun to watch at the moment, it feels. If you're a West Ham fan, it's not much fun at the moment. First win last week, and you'd love to have seen them follow it up with something this week, but their woes on the road continued. Just one of their last 15 away from home have ended in 3 points. Where did it go wrong for them on Saturday, Jenna, and how important are the next 2 games that they have against Crystal Palace and Aston Villa?
Yeah, I think they'll be kicking themselves. I think they've done so well to get themselves back into the game. 2 fantastic goals from Gorey to get it to 2-2. But I think ultimately it was the quality in the other end of the box in Fran Kirby that was the difference on that day. They're shown a bit about themselves in the last recent weeks. They're starting to pick up points. I think maybe for me, they're just missing that number 9, that quality in front of goal that can, you know, get the games over the line. But yeah, the next coming games, they're huge, because obviously I think those are the teams that they're going to be looking like they're going to be their cup finals. They're going to be stuck in a relegation. So if they can pick up the points around them against those teams and just get themselves a bit higher up the leagues. Those games are so important, because I think at the end of the season, if you're there beating those teams in and around you, you're going to be okay. But yeah, frustrating day for West Ham after doing so much to get themselves back into the game.
Yeah, equal entertainment on show at Villa Park on Sunday. Aston Villa claimed their first 3 points of the campaign, similar to Everton, but more late drama. 94th minute winner from Ebony Salmon saw Robert DePauw's side edge past a stubborn Crystal Palace. It finished Aston Villa 3, Crystal Palace 2. Villa's first home win since December 2023, almost a year. That's incredible. I mean, they'll just be relieved, won't they, first and foremost, Suzy, that they've got over the line. Can they build on it?
Well, yeah, I mean, like there's not much of a way down to go, is there? So like they have to build on it to a certain extent. I just find it staggering that it's still only 4 points separating 6th and 12th, and that, you know, like Aston Villa and Everton both getting wins means that everyone has got that duck off their back, and it's still so tight at the bottom, and Crystal Palace are back bottom again. Like that is like wildly exciting. Yeah, they'll be delighted to have it. I like just how difficult it was for them, I think, is like the concern. You know, it's Crystal Palace, the newly promoted team that has played really, really well, but like has generally speaking so far faded in the second half of games, or the final sort of quarter or third of games, as they're trying to get up to speed with the WSL. It shows that they're doing it quicker than expected, but I'm still very worried about Villa, because for the quality they have in the team, they should be doing so much better than they are, and it should not have been that difficult. That said, it's really great to see Rachel Daly like scoring, to see Ebony Salmon, who, you know, has been a player with so much promise for so long, but, you know, hasn't really had the games, has had injury problems, you know, not necessarily kind of getting the minutes that she needs to sort of build up a run of form. Like her coming on and getting a goal, I think, is significant, and like all of those things combined could be a chance to kickstart something. But I just, you know, like they should, if this was last season and we were looking at this result, this would be like a really bad win for them. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't be a great result, and I think that's still the case based on the quality they have in that side.
Yeah, they're not having the greatest of seasons, but, you know, 3 points are 3 points, which Palace didn't get, meaning that they dropped to the bottom of the table with that result. Sophie, how frustrated is Laura Kaminsky going to be, especially with the timings of the goals that they conceded?
I think that for me is like the key thing, and I think it's probably been a theme throughout the season so far, is that when they concede, they're showing a lot of promise in terms of what they're learning and how they're learning so quickly in terms of the on the field of play. They're pretty compact. They battle really well. I'll give another shout out to Lexi Potter in the midfield, because I think she's absolutely phenomenal. For someone so long to dictate a midfield like the way she does, I think it's really a good sign for the future for both Palace, for Chelsea, and then also for England eventually down the line. But then I do think it's just about staying games, and to concede in the 45th plus 7th minute, I think, with Rachel Daly, and the 90 plus 4 minute with Ebony Salmon, it just kind of shows that kind of trend that they're not quite switched on at these key moments where they just need to stay in the game. And it happened in the Chelsea game when they're beaten 7-0. They conceded in the 47th minute, just after half time. And they just, I think that's where they need to work on, just being really, you know, key in those moments, not, you know, going all out or trying to do too much, just trying to stay within in games and manage those moments. And once you've got a run of games where you're not conceding, you kind of break that kind of rhythm. But I wouldn't actually be too worried, like I said, with Everton. I think I wouldn't be too worried about Palace. They've shown me enough in this first block of the season. I think they have enough to stay up. They'll be, yes, they will be in the mix, but I do think they've got enough within their wheelhouse to be able to stay up. One big shout out, though, to the commentator on this game for the impeccable timing just before Ebony Salmon's goal. He said something like, if either team were to concede at this moment in time, it would be heartbreak for the other team. And then literally the ball comes into Salmon's feet. She turns and shoots into the top corner. And I was like, just the timing was absolutely impeccable.
Amazing. The commentator's curse. Well, not in that case, obviously. Listen, don't have a go at us, Guardian Women's Football Weekly fans, if you support either Leicester or Manchester United. But it is our final game to go through, and United returning to winning ways as well, ending a run of 3 draws to beat Leicester 2-0 at King Power Stadium. Elizabeth Turland opening the scoring in first half injury time before Celine Bizet scored her first of the season in the closing stages. Do you think, Jenna, that the victory's kind of eased a little bit of the growing pressure on Mark Skinner, or are the fans that want him out always going to want him out and that they're not for turning?
Yeah, I don't think a win over Leicester's going to ease that pressure on Mark Skinner. I think you alluded to it there. I think the fans who have got it out for him are not going anywhere. But I think you expect a routine win there for Manchester United. I can't really read them this season. I mean, I know that they've had a bit of change over the summer, but they've dropped a lot of points already for a team that wants to be staying up there and cracking those top 2 teams. So, yeah, I think a routine win for them. But in answer to your question, no, I don't think those haters are going anywhere.
No, they were without Ella Toone, Suzy. She's going to miss the next 6 weeks with a calf injury. Such a shame for her. 4 away from reaching 100 successive league starts. How much are they going to miss her?
I mean, that speaks to the problem, right? Like, being 4 away from 100 successive league starts. She's been overplayed like no tomorrow. The lack of rotation in that Man United side, like for a while now, we've been like many journalists have been saying she doesn't look quite right. She looks tired. And like, I think this is the result of like her just being overplayed for Man United for quite some time, which is really disappointing. They've got the quality in the squads to be able to be a little bit careful with her, and they've not really been. She's a huge miss because of that as well, because they have relied on her so heavily. She then becomes a big miss because you've not necessarily rotated your team enough to give other players the opportunity in that position. I mean, they're lucky they've got, Grace Clinton and Celine Bizet, like players that have come into the side and really injected some energy in those like sort of midfield and sort of slightly wider areas as well. But I just feel like, that's an inevitability, and, players shouldn't be reaching 100 successive league starts. Like that for me is the problem in and of itself.
Yeah, I hear you completely. Let's turn our attention to Leicester. There's a few different things here. We've got an email that we've received from Amy on Women's Football Weekly at theguardian.com. And then I want to also speak to Sophie about, the problems in front of goal. So let's try and combine this if we can. This is from Amy. I've just got home from Leicester versus Manchester United. Firstly, I'm gutted. Leicester lost 2-0, but I'm also so annoyed with the referee. The first goal was just before half-time, and I know the whistle isn't blown on the exact number of added time minutes, but it should have been blown and it wasn't, and United then scored. Secondly, for 2 of the free kicks United were awarded, 2 players stood right in front of Janina Leipzig, covering her eyes. It baffles me why there was no booking for it. It's not a fair way of playing football. I've got 2 daughters who play. They're 10 and 11, and even at their ages, I don't like how physical the game can be. But United players pushed and shoved Leicester players over all the time. If football's going to turn into a game of pushing and shoving, then I'm afraid it just puts me off. There isn't a skill in seeing how many players you can push and shove out of the way to get towards goal. By the way, cliche to say, but I love the podcast. Started listening about a year ago, and I look forward to a new episode every week giving me the rundown of the WSL news. Well, thank you for that, Amy, and thank you for taking the time to email in. Sophie, let's discuss that. Was that something that you saw? What do you make of what Amy said?
I did see the free kick situation, which I thought was quite frankly ridiculous. I don't know what they were doing. I know they're trying to put the goalkeeper off. Surely as soon as the ball is played, if they stay there though, they're offside. So, they have to be careful about that. But the referee did come over and have a chat to them, because I don't think it's, they were literally standing in front of her waving their arms in the air. And I'm not sure that's really it's probably within the sporting realms of the game. Maybe it's just a bit unnecessary, I think, in those situations. But yeah, I can understand, there were a couple of poor decisions. There was a throw, I think, that, was changed halfway through. There was just a couple of bits here and there, and it's just added to the Leicester's frustration within that game and Leicester fans' frustration with that game when things aren't going well.
Yeah. Have you ever done that before, Jenna?
The free kick routine?
Yeah.
No, but it did come up on my Twitter feed in the morning, and they ran away from the keeper, and the free kick, it was almost like they weren't on the same pages anyway, so it was completely irrelevant because the free kick took about another extra 20 seconds to be taken. So I'm not sure what the aim of that was, other than just to annoy the goalkeeper, to be honest. It was like a comedy sketch, actually.
It was.
I found it quite distasteful, and I thought the explanation after the match was weird as well, because it wasn't like, he just, like, Mark Skinner just defended it. He said, there's a very tall goalkeeper, so you've got to try and stop their vision. It's something our set piece coach dreamt up and you're allowed to do it. As if that makes it okay, right? Like, most goalkeepers are quite tall. Like, I just, yeah. I mean, there's something very unsporting about it for me that I just think is a bit crap.
But as Sophie said, you can be offside. Being in the blocking the goalkeeper's view. I mean, it's just like, it's the laws of the game. Just one quick one, Soph, on the problems in front of goal that Leicester have. Sayori Takarada, the latest tried in the number 9 role, not a striker, but they registered just one shot on target for the 3rd week running. It's becoming a real issue.
It is a real problem, and I think they're desperately trying to get through to the winter break and the transfer window in January, because they need to buy a striker, a number 9. They can't keep trying to put all of these kind of square pegs in round holes. They've tried Ruby Mace up front, also not a striker. Yanis Kamen up front, also not a number 9, although she can play on the wing. And then you've got Takarada this week. It just goes to show the extent of the problem that Omandi Mikel has at the moment. But yeah, I think they're just trying to get through. They really need that because Naomi Michon has the ACL injury, so she's going to be out for the whole season. They've got Lena Petterman out with a knee injury. I don't know how long she's going to take to get back. So it's kind of desperate. They need to go to the market desperately to get someone to fill that hole.
Yeah, I think I agree. Looking at the table, the teams in and around them, they are actually scoring goals as well, bar Everton. So I think this January window is going to be huge for them, because ultimately, to win a game, you need to start scoring. And if you're not, you're going to find yourself in a world of trouble come the end of the season. So yeah, January is going to be huge for Leicester.
Yeah, after the weekend, it means just 2 points separate the bottom 5 in the table. Give last pods a listen if you want to hear a focus on the relegation battle as well, because we did a long piece on it. Although today's pod, Sophie's saved everybody. Everton and Crystal Palace are both okay. So, we'll see who's left. Right, let's delve into the Championship, shall we? League leaders Birmingham City had a bye week, so there was catch-up to be done in the Championship this weekend. Durham continued their fine form. They beat London City by 3-2 to leapfrog their opponents and draw level with Birmingham at the top. Back-to-back wins now for Bristol City, this time a 2-1 win over Charlton saw them move to 3rd, while Sunderland's 1-0 win over Sheffield United saw them into 5th. Newcastle United scored an equaliser in the final seconds against Southampton to earn a point in front of over 11,000 fans at St James's Park. Meanwhile, Blackburn Rovers' 2-0 win over Portsmouth saw them open up a gap over their opponents, who remain stuck at the bottom of the table. So just 5 points separate 1st to 8th in the table. You know how much I love the Championship. It's brilliant. 5 points separating 1 to 8. That's incredible. It was the first time that all games in the top 2 divisions, Suzy, were played in the main stadia. What did you make of the weekend as a whole?
It's a good showpiece, right? Like, it's good to take advantage of the men's international break to showcase the women's game, and it's nice to have like big showpiece fixtures. I think there's a case for spreading them out a little bit more. It's a great sort of PR thing, but the reality is that attendances are impacted when there are games sort of clashing or on the same day. Like, there's going to be a knock-on effect there. Do I care that much about that necessarily for one-off weekends? Not necessarily. I don't know what I think. Basically, it was good. The attendances, I think, were like in the WSL were decent. I think there was a bit of a natural drop-off from the sort of heady heights we've seen in recent seasons. But I wrote a piece on it. I think that's okay. Like, I think that's natural. Like, more games being played at big stadiums, particularly when you look at, say, like Arsenal. I know they weren't at home this weekend, but like in terms of where their attendances have looked this season compared to, say, last season when they played at the Emirates. When you're playing more games at a stadium, people can pick and choose more, right? Like, about what they go to. They're not necessarily have built that relationship with the team enough to say, I want to be at every single game yet. And that's a process that takes time. It's a process that they're all working through across the WSL and the Championship. They're all at different stages of that. They're all quite early stages of that. And like, you know, I think the more often that women's teams can be showcased at the big stadiums, the better, in part because it's a statement from a team, a club, to say, we value this enough to put it on our biggest stage. You should value it this much. When a team is putting it in a sort of little stadium in the middle of nowhere, like, what does that show about how a club values the side? And then how can they expect fans to value it if they're not fully showing that they value it to the same degree? So like, I think it's always a good thing when they play at big stadiums, whether it works, you know, kind of completely across the weekend at the same time, same places, like, not necessarily for me, but like for one-off here's and there's, I mean, does it matter? Just, like, am I being pedantic? Probably.
Arsenal have moved their Champions League game to Meadow Park, haven't they? By the way, just an aside to that. Let's not go there. We went there last week. Let's not go there again. Soph, what did you make of the weekend?
So I maybe disagree a little bit with Suzy in that I will say this wherever I go these days. I think every women's game should be in the main stadia, and people will come at me about logistics and revenue and all of this stuff. I think that WSL teams, certainly anyway, should play in the main stadia. You have like King Power Stadium being used every week by Leicester City, who aren't doing that well. I think it gives you a base to build off, and you build it and people will come. And I think at this point, in terms of facilities for the players and for everyone else, for the fans, for the media, it's just different gravy when you go to a main stadium compared to when we're in Bournemouth or when we're in Kingsmeadow. It's just completely different. And I understand that they won't fill stadiums straight away. I get that. But I think you just have to be patient with it and go, well, maybe for a season, you're going to get 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever. And then next season, you up it by 10, 20%. You just got to put those foundations in place. I think we're beyond having to travel across to random parts of cities for Arsenal to play football matches. And for like somewhere like Leeds Sports Village in particular, that's just it's not acceptable to host a top league football game there. The access is crazy via transport. To ask fans to go to kind of one road in, one road out. I just think it's just got to the stage where the women's game just needs to kind of think about it a bit more. And I will get on my soapbox about that wherever I go.
For me, I'm going to sit in the middle a bit. I think it's obviously another step in the right direction for the Championship. First time ever that's happened, that they've all been in the men's stadium. I think from working like within a club, I know that things, you've got to kind of build on it. And I think for your likes of Arsenal, who have nailed it, and, you know, they get big crowds, and every time they do it at the Emirates, they just do it perfectly, and they get the numbers and people want to come to them. So I think for a team like, I guess, example, Tottenham, who aren't at that level yet, and they will pick and gradually each season are playing more games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and just being realistic with, some teams have that money, that investment to be able to put on these big games at stadiums. I think the teams a little bit lower down who don't have that investment, because the costs that go into, you know, putting on a game at a stadium are absolutely huge. So I think it's really important that you don't jump in too soon. And I know at Tottenham it's a gradual thing that they're doing. Each season they're looking to put more games on, and then hopefully in years to come, every game will be played there. But I think it's just about picking and getting those games that people will come to watch, especially when you're not your Arsenals or your Chelsea or Man Cities.
Yeah. It's a building process, isn't it, Suzy?
Yeah, it's got to be a strategy for me. That as long as there's a strategy in place for it, like, I sort of sooner rather than later for me, but as long as there's a plan, I'm happy. That's what Arsenal did 3 years ago. They said we're gonna go from 5 games to 8 WSL games at the Emirates within 3 years, and that's what they did. Three games the first year, 5 games the second year. This is just WSL games plus Champions League, and then 8 games this year. And they've done that, and they've built that really successfully. The thing I worry about is some teams are probably just going, oh yeah, we'll have 2 games this season, and it's not really got a strategy for growth. And I think that's the issue for me. As long as there's a strategy in place, I think, happy days, we're moving in the right direction. And as long as it's not a ridiculously long-term strategy to get to that point, then I think it's okay.
Let's give you a quick update on the FA Women's National League. That returned this weekend. Nottingham Forest took advantage of Wolves not being in action. They go top of the Northern Premier after a 4-0 win over Stoke City. Ipswich Town's 4-2 win over Oxford United in the Southern Premier saw them leapfrog #United, who were beaten by Watford. Leeds United's victory over York City in front of over 4,000 at Ellen Road saw them remain tied on points at the top of the Division 1 North with Cheadle Town Stingers. Things equally tight in the Division 1 Midlands with Northampton Town and Leafield Athletic neck and neck. Actonians continue to lead the way in the Division 1 South East, while AFC Bournemouth sit 1 point ahead of Swindon Town in the South West Division. By the way, we've also got an NWSL special coming up for you after the conclusion of the Championship next weekend, but we couldn't leave without giving a quick update on this weekend's semi-finals. Washington Spirit booked their place in the showpiece event, knocking out last year's champions Gotham FC on penalties. Goalkeeper Aubrey Kingsbury had a standout performance, saving all 3 of Gotham's spot kicks to send them through. They're going to face Orlando Pride, who beat Kansas City Current 3-2 in Florida on Sunday. A 38-year-old martyr rolling back the years to score a trademark goal that proved to be the eventual winner for the NWSL Shield winners. So the NWSL Championship taking place in Kansas City next Sunday, which we'll discuss next Tuesday. Also, with the next international break around the corner, Serena Wiegman's announced her latest England squad to take on the USA and Switzerland. Sophie has her reaction to it.
So there is some change in the England squad announced by Serena Wiegman this afternoon for the final international break of 2024. The Lionesses will be without Niamh Charles, Lauren Hemp, Lauren James, Lucy Parker and Ella Toone, who've all suffered injuries in recent weeks. There is also no place for Arsenal's Lotte Wubben-Moy, who is still returning from concussion. It does, however, mean that there is room for some fresh faces in the 24-player squad. There are first senior call-ups for Manchester City's Laura Blinkhill-Brown and Leicester's Ruby Mace. They are both making the step up from the under-23s, and the next fortnight will be superb experience for them and their development. There is also a familiar face in the form of Gabby George, who returns for the first time since November 2022. She has returned from an ACL injury in flying form for Manchester United this season, and a call-up is certainly deserved. Millie Turner is also returning to the back line. It will be a challenging fortnight for England as they look to close out 2024 on a high. They will face Emma Hayes' USA in a showpiece game at Wembley on Saturday 30th of November, for which 80,000 tickets have already been sold. They will then face Euro 2025 hosts Switzerland 3 days later at Bramall Lane.
Lovely stuff. We'll, of course, dissect the games across the pods in the next couple of weeks. Finally, we've had an email in from Caroline from Australia who wanted to tell us about her recent experience watching Japan's WE League. Hi there, my name's Caroline. I'm a gooner and a fan of the pod, listening weekly from Brisbane in Australia. Hi there. Firstly, I wanted to start by saying thank you for creating such a fantastic show. Thank you for listening, Caroline. The pod really helped me understand the women's game as a new fan last year, and it always gives the depth of analysis that I love. I'm writing today to share my recent experience going to a WE League, Women's Empowerment League match in Japan in the hopes of making it more accessible for others. As a visitor who doesn't speak Japanese, it was quite confusing to figure out, and I couldn't find much info online. Turns out the tickets are free. So you don't have to book anything online. They just have a donation system at the stadium. All you have to do is show up to the stadium the day of the match, fill out a form provided with your details, then donate on the way out. They're asking for 500 yen, which is around £2.50. The match was fantastic. The atmosphere from the home supporters was amazing and very different from Australian crowds. She puts in brackets, they're far politer than us. So on one hand, I wanted to share this with the wider women's football community and hopefully break down the language barrier that might make it difficult for visiting fans to enjoy the amazing WE League. On the other hand, It made me wonder, is this a cause for concern? The WE League is the top professional women's league in the nation, and the Japan national teams had a strong track record of success in both the youth and senior teams. So why the lack of financial backing for their top club league? I'm sure it's not a simple answer, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and generally the state of the WE League. And if anyone finds themselves in Japan, I couldn't recommend going to a WE game enough. It was a lot of fun. Brilliant email. Thank you very much, Caroline. Who wants to take that?
I can give it a whirl. I won't profess to know a lot about the WE League and the kind of financial systems behind it, but I do think that we've seen in recent years, the amount of talent that are coming out of there, the amount of Japanese players that have come to the WSL from the WE League as well. It is a real hotbed of talent. In terms of them developing a domestic league, it's great that they have one. It's been going for quite a long time. There has been quite a lot of promotion, I think, around it within country. But I think for a lot of countries who are trying to, develop domestic leagues, it does take time, and it takes, sort of steps along the way. We've seen it in England. Now we've got, one of the strongest leagues in the world because of the kind of investment that's gone into it. So that's absolutely needed. But other countries are kind of maybe different levels on that journey towards making their domestic leagues success. So I think it's a work in progress from what I know about the league. But I mean, I just see the amount of talent coming out of there, and you can only be excited by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Japan's on my bucket list, so when I finally make it out there, I will certainly make it to a WE game. Right, brilliant stuff. Jenna, it was so lovely to see you. I hope you're now over the defeat at the weekend and got a good week planned ahead.
Yeah, a new week. Try and put that aside now. Thanks for reminding me again.
Sorry, mate. I'm sorry. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Soph, take care. Have a good one.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Suzy, superstar always.
Bye.
Keep having your say by sending in your questions via X. You can email us as well at women'sfootballweekly@theguardian.com. And as ever, a reminder to sign up for our bi-weekly women's football newsletter. All you need to do is search Moving the Goalposts Sign Up. The Guardian Women's Football Weekly is produced by Sophie Downey and Silas Gray. Music composition was by Laura Iredale. Our executive producer is Salamat.
This is The Guardian.